This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for. When the Fender Ultra Luxe Vintage came out, to me, my kind of first thought of it was, it looks to me like they're, you know, aiming squarely at Suhr, because what the Suhr has kind of become, I think, is sort of like a pro session choice guitar, where it's like, right, I need something, basically a Strat type guitar, but with a couple of little tweaks, whether that's locking tuners, stainless steel frets, specifically what I think Suhr do, which is kind of a little bit interesting because it's like a bit more of a modern take, but with an antique finish, you know, which is part of what they offer. Now, this is my buddy Lewis's Suhr Mateus Asato. This is a Fender Luxe, Ultra Luxe Vintage. Still can't get my head around that they sent me over, but I wanted to, in this video, kind of just present my thoughts on this. Now, first of all, I would say that both of these have excellent sort of design around the upper fret access stuff. So if you're looking to get to the dusty end of the fretboard, then these both have major improvements on a classic sort of Strat neck join. But other than that, they are quite, I'd say, fairly classic leaning. What I prefer about the Suhr, straight off the bat, is that the neck is a little bit thicker, whereas the Ultra kind of is a little bit more, I think, close to that sort of classic Suhr ellipse type neck feel, like a little bit, yeah, slimmer, all that sort of stuff. So tonally, who knows? tonally, who knows how much there is in it. One of the things that I really liked about this guitar was that to me it did sound remarkably Fenderish. So, I would say that this has got 10 gauge strings on it. The Ultralux Vintage, as they sent it, has 9s, and because it's a floating trem, I'm a little bit not super eager to change those strings out yet, because I think I might need to refloat that bridge. But I would say my overall feel, and I guess part of that is down to string gauge, is that the Suhr comes across as sort of a bit more solid. And I don't know, if you were to see these both in person, I think you'd have something like the same impression. So I've seen a few Suhrs up close. I've seen a few of the Fender Ultralux Vintages up close, and obviously I've got this one here. And it's not that the Fender's like bad or anything. I think maybe that sticker doesn't help, but it's just that the Suhr stuff, like when you look at it, is very, very clean, quite meticulous build quality. You know, some people have sort of said that like the Suhr stuff can be a little bit clinical, but I think precise, surgical, some of these kind of terms might be more appropriate. When it comes to the pickups, these, I think, have a little bit less of an edge to them. So there's a bit of a softer, you know, warmer thing, whereas the Suhr's got more bite. The Suhr's got like a lower action as well, like this Fender, you know, obviously the 9s, but it's also got slightly higher action. They're both, you know, so the Suhr is £8 and this is about £7 and 10 ounces. So let's try some tuning stability. to get a little bit out of tune there. I think maybe the Fender wins on tuning stability. I do want to show you up close. The Nitro here used is a little bit more subtle when it's got the checking on it. I'll show you the Ultra as well, but like it's quite a lot more sort of natural looking, whereas here you see the way that the Nitro, I don't know if it's the way it's formulated or whatever, it's like large, quite visible cracks, which is part of the finish thing, but I'm just saying like there's a difference in how the actual, even though these are both checked Nitro finishes, there's a difference in how that comes across. Try and show you the frets. These have sort of like the triangle shaped fret edges, super tidy. Again, like clinical, surgical, accurate are some words that might come to mind for me with Suhr. But in this particular finish, I think amazing looking. I think these might be clay dots, but they're not like the aged clay. Whereas this little guy, you know, very aged sort of brown dots, probably darker rosewood, which is quite nice. But if we get here onto the frets, you might be able to see that there's a little bit more in the way of like tooling marks. And as I was saying, like this Nitro checking is quite a bit more drastic. It's got that kind of shattered glass look. I think these pickups don't have as much zing, and maybe that helps to sort of offset some of the additional brightness of the stainless steel frets. The fret job, they feel very smooth, both of them, in the hand, so none of that sort of scratchy feeling thing. It's just the fret ends on this one I think are slightly less tidy. We've got the S1 switch in here versus, you know, like an actual humbucker, so I can't really compare all of the tones like for like, but I would also say this has, the Ultra knobs have this really nice rubberized feel, whereas these are just your bog standard, which feel fine too. But yeah, I mean, overall, the one thing for me which the Suhr wins out on is the feel of the neck, which to me is like my perfect neck feel, whereas the Ultra of the Fender is a little bit on the skinnier side for me. Now, if you're looking for a bit more of a modern feel, then possibly the Ultra would be the way you'd go anyway. If you were going for a Suhr Classic, they do a variety of neck shapes, and maybe you go for something slightly skinnier. Overall, I think what's important is that to remember is that this one in the UK is like a $4,000 guitar. This one's like just under $3,000. In other parts of the world, like Australia, the Suhr is like, you know, almost double the price. So, you know, and in America maybe that's slightly different as well. We pay quite a lot in the UK for Suhr, like definitely the quality, but you know, Fender with an alternative. But equally, for a Fender, this is quite an expensive instrument too, right? If it wasn't the Mateus Asato version, then they're actually sort of quite similar in price, and in which case I would kind of encourage you to play them both, because yeah, this neck shape is not necessarily going to be for everyone, and Suhr make a variety of different ones. So I think pound for pound in the UK, if these were, you know, exactly the same price, I'd be saying I think the Suhr, for me, I prefer. So there's that. So is it a Suhr killer? I don't necessarily think so, but I think the real thing is that in certain parts of the world, a Suhr is almost beyond affordability, and the Fender is somewhat closer, although still quite an expensive guitar. That's my thoughts on that. Cheers, Lewis, for letting me borrow that, and cheers, Fender, for sending me this one. I was really interested to see how it held up against a good Suhr.